nice toolbox. And I have several of these toolboxes, which I know you've seen if you've watched before, that you have seen these before. And they have a very nice thing that unlocked them here and allowed you to open it up. And look at this. Look at this green felt that kept them from getting injured while they were packed up in the box. Now, it was really fun before with all the different tools and things like that. But this is an interesting group of, let's call them things. Things that people would use. And they became prevalent and in use from way, way back in time. If you were on a ship and you wanted to look at another ship and it was way across the water, way away from you, and you wanted to know whether or not, what kind of a ship it was. And this, tell you what, I'm gonna move this out of here, out of the road here, so that you can see this better. And see how this is a leather case, and this was used on board a ship. Well, these are in here very but they'll come, and here they come, here they come. Here they come. Look at the size of those fellas. They're kind of made just like this, but they're big, and therefore, let's get this out of the way. This is a nice carrying case, but this is a very expensive instrument. If something was 10 miles away and you wanted to see it, you can imagine how involved it would be to make an instrument like this that could look at something that was 10 miles away and make it look like it was only 10 feet away. That's a big difference, isn't it? 10 mile versus 10 feet. Get this out of the way. All right. Now, how does this work? Okay. I have to adjust this down. It matches my eyes. And it's almost there. A little bit more. There it is. And then I can take this and I can adjust this way or this way. And I can adjust it to where I get it in focus. And I can tell, I can look at something that's 10 miles away and I can make it look like it's only 10 feet away. Isn't that something? Isn't that a wonderful instrument to be able to do that? Right? And I can put this in like this, and it fits nicely back inside that case, and it's protected. And people that were in the Navy, because it was such a wonderful instrument, were very cautious of it. And they would carry it around in that big leather case that I took it out of. They would carry it around in that because of the chance they might need to look at something. And then they would remove it from the case and look at it. But when it wasn't being used, they were very careful of it. And this is called the same thing as this, which is called, it's two, so it's bi, and it's a binocular. A binocular. And this is the same thing. It is a binocular. And it's because it has two eyes, two telescopes. One here and one here. So it's bi, meaning two. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to see something that's maybe 10 miles away. And when you look through this, it looks like it's only 10 feet away. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Isn't that wonderful? All right. So, we have things here that can look at. I have this little thing here that can look at things very small and make it look a little bit larger. But it's close by. It's right here. But it's very small what I'm looking at. This would be looking at maybe a ship, which is very large, or an elephant that's very large, and he's far away. This looks at little things that are up close, but they all use the same kind of method. They all use lenses. This one here actually has 4 lenses in it. And depending on what your eyesight is and what you're looking at, the lens would be ground or manufactured in a certain way. But they're all using the same method. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? That all of these instruments all use the same method and the same kind of manufacture. But each one is different depending on its use. This is a lens that was removed many years ago from a telescope that was damaged. They were flat on one side and rounded on the other. And when you look through them, you could be amazed at what you saw, even when you were holding it in your hand. And you adjusted it out and in. Just like this microscope, or this microphone here. I come back and I go, and it makes it either seem larger or smaller. All right. Now that's what each one of these things utilizes. And we'll put that down there. All right. So people would say, oh, Well, how wonderful. How wonderful. And somebody decided, well, let's make one like this. Let's make one like this. And let's make it with two things in it. One big round one and then a little one here. And so, let's see. This thing here has words on it, but they're very small, and so you can't hardly read them. But when you use this, you can take this and you can go and you can adjust it and you can read what those little words say. And that can be very helpful in some instances. This is they call this a magnifying glass. Now, I said before they were called scopes, but they called this a magnifying glass. And they're not terribly expensive. And so if you wanted to look at things really up close, you might ask, maybe Santa Claus could bring you one at Christmas time or something like that, called a magnifying glass. And that's this size. Now, let's say you wanted to carry something around in your pocket. Now, I showed you this before. Look at the way this works. Inside this, you see how this closes up and how this opens up. And here is a magnifying glass. And so you could look at something like, see the words here? The words across here, they're so small. But you could take this and you can look at this and it says it's 2x magnifying glass made in China. That's what this is. But I can't read this without using a magnifying glass. And this is one that you can carry around in your pocket. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that nice? You can put it in. This is kind of too big to put it in your pocket. But this, you can put it in your pocket and carry it around. And anytime you wanted to make something look a little bigger, you could take this out and you could use it. Now then, here's another one. It's a little smaller and a little fancier, but it is the same thing as this. But it's small, and maybe you could put this in a little cubby hole in your desk or something like that, and it would be always available for you to use. And it's a little prettier than this one. Ha! Ha! All right. And I'm going to lay these all out here, and then we can look at them. Now, let us suppose just that something was far away, and you wanted to see it. You wanted to look at it closer, but it was far away. Now you could walk there, but it might be a long way off. So if you wanted to stay right where you're at and figure out what that is, maybe it's a rabbit or a squirrel or a deer or something even bigger like an elephant. You could see it from far away. And they have a thing with a lens in it that allows you to do that. It's called a telescope. Now, people that were very smart said a telescope is a thing that extends and contracts, but you put it up to one eye. And I don't have a telescope here to show you, but some very smart people says, I got two eyes. I need to look at this thing far away. And he said, I can make such a thing. And he did. And he made what was called a binocular. And that's what this is. And instead of being just one thing, it has two things. And this even has a little carrying thing. Yes, here we go. And you could put this around, if you wanted to, you could put this around your neck. Like that. How's that? Right. And so you could carry it around, but it kind of flops around. So you can't put it in your pocket. But here's the interesting thing. Here's how it works. You see how this opens up like this and closes? It opens up depending on what size your head is. If you're just a little guy, you might want to put this down because your eyes are closer together. If you were a big guy and your eyes were far apart, you would want to extend this out like this. Sometimes it's a little hard if you're wearing glasses. So, I see something way over there. I can't tell. Is that a rabbit or is that an elephant? I'd really like to know, especially if it was a lion. It might decide it wanted to have me for lunch. Anyway, so I would put this up to my eyes and I would adjust this in until it was one kind of image. And then I have the ability to adjust this with this little thing right here in the middle, and it will adjust in and out. And it brings whatever you're looking at into focus. It is called a binocular. They're not terribly expensive, and they're very useful. Now, I have to put this back the way I had it so that it doesn't get misused. Okay, and you put it back together. Two of them here. This one is a little bit smaller, and it is a little case. Now you see, it kind of looks the same way, only it's a little smaller, because this was what Grandma Po used. This is what Grandpa Po used. And it works the same way. You can adjust it in and out depending on how far apart your eyes are. And this is what Grandma Po used, and she often would take it if she went to a play. She could use this. It didn't take up a lot of space. She could put it in her pocketbook, and she could carry it to a play, and she could see the actors like they were just 3 or 4 feet away from her. But they might be as much as 50 yards away from her in a theater, but she could see them better. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that useful? And they're not terribly expensive. And Grandma Poe, she wanted to be careful that she didn't damage these, so she had a little case to put it in. Okay, put my glasses back on. All right, so we have two things here, which are called binoculars. All right, now let's say you had something you wanted to read, and it was small. The print was very small. Let's see, what could we use? Let's see, here's a book. It's all about cars. It's all about cars. And it has all kinds of pictures in it. But let's say that the print was a little bit small. You could take this and put this over top of the print, and you could adjust it in and out, and you could read print that's very small. Or let's say there was a picture. In this case, a picture of a car. Here's a picture of a car. It's called an MG. Ha ha ha. Very good. But here's all kinds of information about it. And if you wanted to read it, but it was a little bit small, you could use this. And you could put it there, and you could read that. It's the same thing as this, but it's small. It's very convenient to use, and you can keep it, you could carry it around in your pocket if you wanted to. Ha ha. All right. Okay, my children. Now then, I explained if something was really small and you wanted to look at it, you could use this. But what if it's really small? Really, really small. Like I said as an example before, like a mosquito. And you wanted to see all of its legs and its wings and so on. Maybe it's a fly. Maybe it's a butterfly. It could be all kinds of things. A little beetle. And you wanted to know, it was too small for you to see, but you'd like to know, well, how many legs does this beetle have? Does it have 6 legs? Or 4 legs? Or 8 legs? You'd want to discover what kind of a thing you were actually looking at that was maybe crawling around on your floor. Or maybe even smaller than that, like a germ. Somebody said, well, if we can make things bigger or smaller by using one of these called a lens, maybe we can make an instrument that allows us to do that. And he did. And he made a thing that looked like this. And this is called a microscope. And what you would do, it's very nicely made, and it's very old. And the way it would work, let's say it was a mosquito. You would take a mosquito and you would maybe take a little bit of glue and you would put a dot of glue on this. And then you would take the mosquito and you'd stick him to the glue. so he would stay there. And then you would take this and you would put that right there, right underneath this. Now, you have to adjust this like you adjust a binocular, but you only have one of these, like this. You only have one of these as opposed to two. And what you would do, you would take this and you would look through here down into this, and then you could adjust this. Do you see how it doesn't move very much, but do you see how this moves up and down? See how that moves? Isn't that nice? Oh, and it's so smooth. It's so smooth. And if you needed bright light, you could shine a flashlight, or you could have a bulb that shined right down on this, and that would reflect on the object that you were looking at. And you could adjust this down or up to get it in focus. To get it in focus, like we would do with the binoculars. Okay? Isn't that a pretty thing? Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that very nice? This is made from brass, and this is made from aluminum, I believe. And see how it goes up and down? Can you see that? See, it goes up and down. And that brings it into focus, and that makes you can look at it depending on how big it is or how small it is or how good your vision is. All right? Now then, we've gone from the very small, very, very small, to the very large, and everything in between. Grandma Poe goes to a play, and she wants to see the actors up close, but she can only get so close to the stage. She has a little binocular that she can look through, and she can see the actors more clearly. Isn't that wonderful? All of these things that make it easier for us. Oh, should we say, it makes it easier for us to live. And it makes it more fun because we can see things and we can learn things that without them, we wouldn't be able to. Well, I hope you've had a good time today. I'll bet the children, the grandchildren, and their friends, and maybe even their parents, in their family, that they would find it interesting to know how some of these things work. You all, please all have a good day. Be kind to one another, and when you learn something, don't be afraid to share it with a friend. Good afternoon. Bye.